Okay. What's that? All right, the time is now 5 p.m. We're going to call to order the Narragansett Town Council work session. Tonight we have a work session to discuss the Narragansett Town Beach Carrying Capacity Study prepared by Taylor Engineering. And just for some background information here, at the Town Council meeting on July 1st, 2024, the Town Council voted to receive and place on file the Narragansett Town Beach Carrying Capacity Study prepared by Taylor Engineering. And then tonight, a representative from Taylor Engineering will be presenting the findings of the study to the council and the public. I also do want to clarify that this, when we did have the study done, no taxpayer funding was used for this study. I know that there are some concerns with the cost of this study. However, it was the funds from the beach were used, the fund balance. So, and again, the town beach is a business, so that was part of us trying to understand the business part of the beach. And there's a lot of really pertinent information in this study. So it's a long study, so we did allocate a couple hours for if we need it, or at least an hour and 45 minutes prior to our council meeting. So this time, Ms. Kershaw, did you want to speak on it or at all, or introduce the engineer?
Very much. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the engineers involved directly with creating this study and the work that they did. The principal engineers that are here representing Taylor Engineering are Wendy Laurent. Come on up, Wendy. Wendy will be our presenter this evening, and also Christopher Bender, right there. So he'll be assisting as well. So again, welcome, Wendy and Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for entrusting us to do this study. It was really enjoyable. Chris and I are actually both URI graduates from the Ocean Engineering Department there, and it took us back to our days when we both lived in Rhode Island and was really memorable. So we'll jump right into it and get started tonight because we've got a lot of information to cover. I hope that this is sort of a cliff notes of the much larger report. I hope it simplifies it. We're going to take some simple questions at the end, so if there's anything specific you want to touch on, there are slide numbers throughout the presentation, so please make note of that and we can flip back to them quite easily. So, starting out, who are we and who was our study team? So joining us, we had EA, Engineering, Science, and Technology. So first, a little bit about us, Taylor Engineering. We were founded in 1987, and we're about 60 people, a pretty small engineering firm. We're all employee-owned, and our headquarters is in Jacksonville, Florida, but we do have a number of remote staff up here in the Northeast, myself located in Philadelphia. So our company, we really focus our attention on the water and any water-related engineering, planning, management, or environmental challenges, and we have a very specific emphasis on the coastal region. So this is our bread and butter. Joining us, we had one of our common teammates, EI Engineering, and they were founded in 1973. They're quite a bit larger with over 600 people, also employee-owned too. They're headquartered down in Hunt Valley, Maryland, but they have a local office up here in Warwick. So we utilize them and their environmental engineering strength, their ecological engineering, to help us out with some of the field work as well as the dune health assessment. So jumping into the study, and we'll take an outline of this presentation. So the objective of this was to conduct a multi-parameter carrying capacity study and provide recommendations for beach operations and management that will enhance the experience of beach visitors while also creating a safe and resilient beach. Down in the corner, you can see a QR code to our report, which is located on the town's webpage. This is also at the end too, if you want to access it. So we're going to jump through a lot of the chapters in the report and our findings. So we'll start off with the introduction, that's done, check there. Next, we'll jump into beach morphology, or what is the physical beach? How has it reacted in the past? What does it look like currently? When I say currently and present, we're looking back a year, because that's when we started this study, and that's when we had the data for. So our present 2023, 2022 conditions, and then we'll also take a look at future conditions with the impacts of sea level rise. We'll take a look at beach usage. We have a lot of data regarding the beach and the usage of the beach. The survey results, I'm sure many of you took the survey. We had so many responses, way more than we anticipated, and it provided really great resource and data points. From there, we'll go into the carrying capacity, followed by some of our top recommendations and a summary. So quick looking at the methodology. We had 4 tasks in this project to help you better understand. We started off with a desktop study. We compiled all of the historic information, previous studies that have been done on the beach, the sand placement history, took a look at the topographic and bathymetric data, so that elevation data of the beach and the nearshore region, aerial imagery, water level history, beach usage, and also sea level rise projections. So what is the beach going to look like in the future? Try and get an idea for that. Next, we conducted our site visits. We did 4 site visits last summer on 2 August weekends. While doing those, we collected unmanned aerial system or drone photogrammetry. We used that to classify the number of people on the beach and also the beach conditions. So what's the width of the beach, what's the dune health, etc. And also conducted an ecological analysis. So we had some people in the dunes classifying species and looking at the health of them. During this time, we also launched the beach user survey, which had over 1,000 responses and was really, really great. We have all the comments in our report. I encourage you to read through them, Town Council. There's a lot of information in there, but we did summarize them based on main categories, main topics that were hit on by a number of comments. So in task 3, we wrapped this all up, and this is really where we did our analysis. Not only did we look at the carrying capacity analysis, but like I've mentioned, we also looked at the conditions of the beach currently and what's anticipated in the future. Summarized all of that data into what is that large report in task 4, and provided a list of recommendations as well as beaches around not only the US, but also around the world that may use some of these policies that you can turn and look at what they're doing and maybe enact that here at Narragansett. So jumping into beach morphology. A little bit of background. So beach morphology, this is the analysis of elevation data to determine beach evolution. And we used 4 different evolution parameters here to look at the health of the beach. The first is dune position, marked by those purple circles. So we looked at how the dune is growing. We defined an elevation, that's the toe of the dune, and looked at this across the beach. Next, we looked at the shoreline position. This is the seaward limit of the beach, or the approximate high tide line. Together, these combine with the beach width. This is your buffer against storm protection, as well as your recreation area. So this is a very important parameter for Narragansett for both recreation and storm damage protection. And finally, we took this into the 3D space a bit and looked at volume. So we classified erosion and accretion patterns, and we looked at all of these parameters not only in the across shore or almost east to west direction, but also the north to south direction in the along shore. Both these are really important to understand where sand is moving because it's one large system. The sand doesn't just disappear. It moves somewhere else, so you need to understand it in a holistic way. So some beach terminology. We have our dune, which is primarily vegetated. We look at that in our study. At the town beach, the dune doesn't extend the whole length of the beach. You know, it's only in a few certain spots. We also, I'm going to say the beach berm quite frequently. That's the area you recreate on, where you sit down your chair, enjoy the day. Between mean high water or mean low water, that's approximately your high tide line, and your low tide line, that's the intertidal zone. And then out from there, we have the near shore. These are all components of the beach that all play together and help protect your important infrastructure, primarily your facilities, as well as Route 1A, from shocks and stressors, such as erosion from sea level rise and significant storm events. So our methodology for looking at these, we first established a series of transects. These transects were based on previous studies that have been done. There's been a number of different morphology studies done by URI as well as Woods Hole Group. So we looked at all their data and defined these transects. They're all approximately perpendicular to the shoreline and evenly spaced as possible. So we tried to take that into account. For the town beach, we analyzed each one of those transects, so that goes from T1 to T11. And then to the north, we have the north monitoring area, as we're calling it. So that's the private beaches, all the way down to the narrow river. And in that area, we really just looked at every other transect, but included them all for if it's needed in the future to look at them. There were 17 surveys that we had to choose from, and we chose the surveys we did based on the date of the surveys and their extent. So some of these surveys may have just been on the subaerial or the dry beach. They didn't extend out into the water. Other surveys, they might have had some data gaps in them. A lot of times if it's LiDAR data, sometimes it can't penetrate through the water and you have some holes where there's wave action. So we ended up choosing the 2010, 2018, and 2022 surveys to look at. The 2010 to 2022 comparison is what we call the long term. This is only a decade, it's not that long, but it is the longer term and it defines the beach pre-Sandy. So that's a pretty monumental storm event that we wanted to capture. And then the near term is that 4-year period just to understand what's been going on in more recent years. Throughout this, we're gonna define the position of the beach mentioned as a range, and that's really the distance from the transect start point. And it often relates to an elevation. So with the range comes a defined elevation, so the dune, the mean high water position, etc. So jumping into our dune and analysis there. So why are dunes important? They provide storm damage protection. This is your last reservoir of sand when a storm comes through. Very, very important. In addition, they provide increased resilience. If you didn't have that reservoir of sand there to spread out along the beach when you really needed it, it would be a lot harder to bounce back after a storm. So it's an important feature. As well, it provides critical habitat to the beach. Lots of critters live in there, birds love it. And the vegetation in the dune is so very important as the root structure strengthens the dune. The more established vegetation you have that are not invasives, natural to the environment, that helps strengthen the dune and keep the sand in place. Also, it helps the dune accrete sand. So wind-blown sediment will get stuck in that vegetation and help grow the dune. So very important feature. And here we took a look at the dune position. So that is the toe of the dune, the seaward toe of the dune, and we tracked that to try and see how it's performing. So in the report, I'm sure you've seen these plots. I don't expect you to read what's on the screen. I know it's quite small, but these plot the dune position for the 3 survey periods. You can see here the primary dune feature located between T5 and about T10. That's where the dune's the largest, right in the central portion of the town beach. And we track, like I said earlier, we track the 7-foot NAVD 88 contour here. So for the results of this, the long-term and near-term changes are quite similar. So I'm gonna focus on the near term. Overall, we see average landward movement of the dune of 8 feet. So the dune is receding. It is eroding away, moving landward. We saw this at all transects in the near term. Additionally, the largest landward movement occurred near the North Pavilion parking lot and the cabanas. I know a lot of the dune in this area is not well vegetated, so that could be part of the reason. Additionally, to the north, so in that north monitoring area, we see mixed movement. There's an average about 2 feet of seaward movement there. So usually if you see the same trends both in the beach area and the monitoring area, you know it's a systematic problem. But we actually saw seaward movement to the north, so that dune appears to be growing a bit. Now taking a look at the berm, or your recreation area. Like I said, it provides those great recreation benefits as well as storm damage protection, resilience, and more habitat area. And here we measure we'll measure two parameters primarily. We have the shoreline position, which we define as the mean high water contour, and that's your approximate high tide line, as well as the beach width, which takes into account that dune toe, as well as the shoreline position. So the beach width is related to both those contours. So for the shoreline position, looking at the long-term changes, we see an average shoreline recession, or westward movement of 21 feet. If you're looking down at the plot, that orange circle on the left, the difference between the dark blue and the light blue line, that's 22 feet. So when you get down near the cabanas at T11, the shoreline recession there is about 75 feet. That's where we see our largest changes over the long term. That continues in the central part of the beach towards the north and towards the narrow river, and that area has seen significant changes over the long term. However, in the near term, that seems to be relatively stable. The changes aren't too much there. So overall, as well, in the north control area, we're seeing retreat of the mean high water position. And in the near term, the changes aren't nearly as significant as that long term. So the beach hasn't changed too much when it comes to the shoreline position in the past 4 years that we analyzed here. So now taking a look at the beach width, you'll see the plot there says 22 feet again. That's because there's not a dune there, so it's the same exact width as it was before. But that's just to provide a reference of the scale of that plot. Over the long term, we've seen a decrease in width of 17 feet on average across the beach. The near term is a little confusing because we actually see an increase in width from the average, which we didn't anticipate seeing this. But looking at the data a little closer, it's attributed to that dune recession. So the dune is moving landward, making the beach recreation area seem like it's larger. I wouldn't necessarily say that's a great thing. You want a big, healthy dune because that's your storm damage protection. So that's a little confusing there and good to understand, but overall, you don't see too many changes. The largest changes that you're seeing in those lines, again, is in that area nearby to the cabanas and just a little north of there. We also looked at volume change, so now taking it into 3 dimensions. And we looked at it across a number of different contours. So the first that we looked at is the dune, so above that 7-foot contour. We also looked at the subaerial, or that's the dry beach, so above mean high water, between that intertidal zone and then the near shore. So as the beach erodes during a storm event, it's important to understand where that sand is going. Is it being placed in the near shore? Is it being placed further offshore? Is it going to the north, the south? That's all good to understand. So our volume changes here. It's a little hard to see on this screen, but that light orange line on the plot, just for reference, that's about -5 cubic yards per foot. So if you think of a yardstick, place 3 of them together to make a cube type shape. That's a cubic yard, pretty big once you start adding them up. So over the long term, erosion has controlled, same with the near term, both of them averaging approximately the same order of magnitude, I would consider that. So 4 cubic yards per foot. It's important to notice that the north monitoring area is actually experiencing accretion for both terms, especially that near term. And this is controlled primarily down by the narrow river and accumulation of sediment below mean high water. I know you've had studies there, so that hopefully is no surprise to you, but that's controlling those trends. Again, too, in the middle, you see that difference where there's the largest changes, right where at the end of the town beach, nearby to the cabanas. So now looking at beach changes due to sea level rise, So as sea level rises due to climate change, we'll see an increase in water levels. That increase will then narrow the beach because your high tide's going to be just a little higher day by day. And so looking at NOAA's sea level rise curve, we looked at the intermediate and the high scenarios. And by 2050, it's anticipated that approximately 30 to 45 feet of shoreline recession will occur due to sea level rise. By the end of the century, that's up to 130 to 230 feet. In some areas, that's the entirety of the beach, so that's something to consider. So a summary of this chapter, beach morphology. Overall, dunes are really important. They provide increased resilience to the beach. They have great habitat, and native vegetation really enhances their function. Overall, the dunes are retreating. This does not take into account the winter storms that you saw. Chris and I were both down here in the winter and went out to the beach, and we saw that shoreline erosion. We saw the beach, the cobbles out there, the dunes. They look a lot better today. So good job there, but do take into account that this study did not have that data. Over the long term, trends indicate a decrease in beach width, but recent data is showing a slight increase, but that was primarily due to dune retreat. So I think it's safe to say the dunes are retreating a little. So keep an eye on them, keep an eye on the toe, try and make them grow. The volume analyses indicate that there's significant amounts of sediment accumulating near the narrow river. We're seeing the most significant changes in the beach nearby to the cabanas, sort of at the central portion of the overall beach system. And with increased sea level rise, there will likely be significant impacts to the beach beyond those that you're seeing right now. Oops. Okay, next, switching over to beach usage, new chapter. So for beach usage, we analyzed a number of data sets. We're going to go through many of them and summarize them quickly. So we took a look at the current policies of the beach, the parking sales, the beach pass sales, daily admission, revenue, and water usage. These were all important for us to really understand before jumping into the capacity analysis. So we understand how the beach functions and how it's currently being managed. So parking, what is the parking availability? Within the town lots, we counted approximately 986 parking spots. And then that expands once you go into the local streets, which many of those have some time restrictions or are not for beach parking. So we had some lot closure data that was recorded by the beach workers, and we found when analyzing that data that closures typically occur between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Most of the lots, when they do close, they're closed for approximately 2 hours, and then they can reopen. And to no surprise, about 60% of the closures do occur on weekends. The west lot is that to close first, and there was actually a decline in lot closures between 2021 and 2023. I do want to note that is also dependent on probably who's recording the data that day, but that's what the data said. So here's some quick aerial shots of the beach throughout the day. You can see at 9 a.m., both the north and south lots have a significant amount of parking. By 1 p.m., they are quite full, if not at capacity. And then when you get to 5 p.m., again, there's a lot of availability that opens up. So the data that we saw does align with those parking lot closure logs. Taking a look at the beach pass data. So between 2019 and 2023, there were over 400,000 daily beach passes sold. We did notice a decline in sales between 2019 and 2023 of about 20%. And probably, again, no surprise, majority of them are sold at the South Pavilion. That's the best place to enter the beach if you're coming for the day. For seasonal beach passes, about 50,000 passes were sold in that same time period. And in recent years, there's been a decrease in the adult pass sales due to the free adult pass, which we saw in the data for 2023. Those were about even, those two sales. So looking at the beach admissions, these were logs that Michelle sent over to us that included multiple things. They've transformed over the years, but they have some really great data in there, including the weather conditions, the attendance, the revenue for that day, parking, and then any significant notes about the lot closures, events that occurred on the beach, etc. Do note that these are dependent, again, on those who are logging the data and the clicker counts. We did find that 20% of the days, there were more than 4,000 people admitted onto the beach, and of those 4 years, there were 8 days where there were more than 6,000 people, so that's only about 2% of the days. In 2022, you see an increase in those days, and that's because holidays occurred on the weekends. That was a nice year, beautiful weather. Holidays on the weekends, you're gonna have a lot of people at the beach. So, highly dependent on weather, and I'm sure this year you're getting lots of people at the beach, so I'm sure those numbers might go up. On weekends, we found that there's an average of about 3,000 people admitted to the beach, and on weekdays, there's about 2,000 people. I do want to note that these are daily admissions numbers too. So when we talk about capacity and admissions, these are different. These are daily admissions, the overall number of people all day long, where capacity is the number of people at one time on the beach. So, something to think about, and we'll mention again. Looking at beach revenue now, so the beach revenue is about $1.7 million per year. This does not include rental fees for the cabanas, lockers, changing rooms, etc. That was estimated to be over $500,000 more, so very, very good revenue numbers here. And I do want to note that the largest contributor to this revenue is daily admissions and charges for parking. That's 65% of the revenue, so that's very important as they are sustaining the beach and also the local community. So taking a look at the survey results. The beach user survey that we launched was active between the end of July and beginning of October of last summer, and it generated nearly 1,000 responses. We did do quality control checks on this data. We had people send in their emails, their addresses. If there were duplicate responses from one person, we did merge their results into one response. So it did go from over 1,000 responses to just under 1,000 responses, and we made sure that we did do checks on that data. The survey included a series of multiple choice and ranking questions, followed by open-ended prompts where users could input how they really feel about the beach, how it's operating, and if they see any improvements that can be made. So we asked a number of questions. Each one was very important. This included the length of each user's trip, where they're from, if they're visiting or if they're local, how many people they usually attend the beach with, what they do while they're at the beach, how many times they visit, how much they spend, if they use the facilities, how they feel about safety. I know that's huge. That's one of the most important things. You want a safe beach, especially when it comes to your management and your operations. And then finally, any concerns. There was plenty of room to air your concerns. So, majority of beach users said that they attended the beach for 2 to 4 hours, and primarily with family and friends. They mostly visited between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., and they said the most used facility is the restrooms. No surprise there. Primary purpose of going to the beach was sunbathing, swimming, and exercising. And when looking at what users are most concerned about, this was one of our ranking questions. They were most concerned about overcrowding, parking, beach erosion, and ecosystem health, and least concerned about beach safety, cleanliness of facilities, noise, and trash or sanitation issues. We also had a similar survey for the employees to take, and their concerns were inappropriate behaviors, crowds, parking, and staffing levels. Overall, though, there was a very high satisfaction with visitors. 95% of respondents ranked their experience as a 3 out of 5 or higher, so good, very good, or excellent, with almost 40% saying they have a 5 out of 5 experience while attending Narragansett Beach. Common complaints that were talked about in the open-ended questions were difficulty of parking, the need for additional enforcement, crowding, and the cost. I have in here the natural environment and beauty of the beach. That was not a complaint. It was many people said how much they enjoy the beach, how wonderful of an environment it is, and I thought that should be mentioned. As well, the staff was praised. People say they're very friendly, they work very hard, and they were very appreciative of how well the beach is run and managed and how great your staff is. When prompted about safety, most users said they feel pretty safe at the beach. Some users did mention ocean safety, the need for crowd control, maybe at events, stuff like that, but most people did feel safe while at the beach. So looking at the carrying capacity. There's two different types of carrying capacity that I want to touch on. The first is social carrying capacity. Social carrying capacity is defined as the maximum beach user density at which beach users feel comfortable and uncrowded, while physical carrying capacity relates to the limitations on the number of people that can fit on the beach at any given time. So looking first at social carrying capacity. It's really easy to assume that higher densities of people mean that it's a less quality experience. There are some studies that show that's not necessarily true. Some people enjoy a crowded beach. They enjoy that lively atmosphere. So it varies person to person. We're talking about people's feelings here. So it's really hard to measure that and illustrate based on our field observations and surveys, because everyone has a different opinion. There's also a lot that goes into this. How close are you to amenities, urban areas? How easy is it to access the beach? Are there lifeguards? Everything that makes your day at the beach good goes into the social carrying capacity. So we turned to the survey results to look at the social carrying capacity, and we did find conflicting results. So when people selected their concerns, lack of personal space was the top concern, followed by parking. I should note too, at the bottom, there's people who did not respond to this. The survey was quite long, so not every answer was mandatory. But it is a top concern. However, people still enjoy the beach. They're still enjoying their time spent on the beach. So it's very difficult to define social carrying capacity. However, some users may feel that it's been met. So looking now at physical carrying capacity, we're engineers, there's numbers, there's ways to quantify this. In our book, it's a lot easier. So we're gonna go through how we came up with our methodology to get to the physical carrying capacity, and it was, I believe, 6 steps, so hold tight with me. We took our field survey data from those 4 days over August 2023 and actually stitched them all together and counted every single person, every single umbrella, every single tent on the beach at multiple times throughout the day. Lots of counting. We then applied a multiplier to each one of these because umbrellas, you have to assume, is there a person under there, is there not? So we have to make some assumptions while doing this analysis. And while doing this, we noticed some trends throughout the beach, both throughout the day and along the beach. So we decided to break down the beach into different segments. And we analyzed these segments both through time, temporally, as well as through space. So on the right there, you see we have the pier, South Lot, South Pavilion, Center, North Pavilion, and Cabanas. This is where we saw trends occurring. We also looked at the number of people both above mean high water, so what's the dry beach when it's high tide, and between mean high water and mean low water. We took a look at about 30 groups of people throughout each one of these various beach segments to see what the density was of these people and set our parameters for what you'll see of our density. So looking at our questions, how did admissions fluctuate throughout the day? We wanted to fact check our numbers and make sure this makes sense. So to note, the busiest time was August 6th at 1 p.m. We counted approximately 2,800 people. The total admissions that day was 5,600. When you look at the percent total there, that's about 50% of the people were on the beach at the peak time. That is very highly correlated with what we saw in the survey results. People said the peak time that they are at the beach is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., followed by that 1 to 3 time segment. And about 60% of respondents indicated they attend the beach for less than 4 hours. So people are coming and going throughout the day. We don't expect to see 100% of the admissions at the beach at one time. So now, how did people fluctuate across the beach? Looking at the usable beach area, so that area above mean high water, we took the area associated with that, as well as that below mean high water. And I want you to note that when you look at the beach at low tide, it's about 40% larger than it is at high tide. The beach is pretty flat, a shallow slope, so capacity can increase much more at low tide versus high tide. So capacity also varies with your tidal reference there and how it is throughout the month. So I'm sure many of your beach users know that. They know when it's a high tide day, there's going to be less room on the beach. And similar to other studies, we saw that the density of users along the beach is not homogeneous. It's not uniform. People tend to sit nearest to entrances and exits, amenities, as well as the ocean. So due to this, we classified the different areas with different densities. So high density areas were the pier, South Lot, South Pavilion, and North Pavilion. We classified the center as a medium density and the cabanas as low density. So moving on to steps 5 and 6 of our analysis. Like I said, we looked at both homogeneous, so uniform density across the beach, and variable density. Variable density much better reflects how people act. This is much more realistic to human behaviors. We then repeated this for a number of scenarios, both for current 2023 conditions, future conditions at 2050 and 2100, using those sea level rise scenarios I mentioned earlier, and then with the implication of emergency lanes, which is one of our recommendations. So if you added emergency lanes to the beach where people are not allowed to sit, but they help facilitate a safe transport of people that might need assistance from the water to the lifeguard stands up to the parking lots, that's going to decrease the amount of space available on the beach. So we wanted to look at that as well. So what are our results? Using that variable density, you get about 7,600 people can fit on the beach above mean high water. While using the homogeneous density, you get about 5,000 people. Those numbers almost double when you consider the low tide scenario. And so then when we go and add emergency lanes, you can see on the right those dark gray lines all stemming from a lane at the back of the beach. Those would go to the approximate location of the lifeguard stands. And they would help really, they're important when there's more people on the beach because it's harder to get to people, harder to get to the water. So as the number of people increase, these are more and more important. We found that this area decreases the recreation space by about 13%. So when looking at the variable density, that's about 1,000 people, and the homogeneous density, that's about 700 people. So future conditions, as sea level rises, we went over this earlier, the beach's recreation space will likely get smaller. And at this time, the protective dune is even more important. You want it there for storm events. So this is important to assess what is the current beach health and what would it look like in the future if the beach was what it was back in 2023 and you did nothing. But as we know, the beach is dynamic, it's constantly changing. So this is just a reference. The plot on the right, or excuse me, the chart table on the right, on the bottom is the 2100 results. And you see there's a 100% decrease in area above mean high water at the pier. There would be no more beach left at the pier, and majority of the other areas of the beach, there's very little beach space left above mean high water if the beach continued to recede based on those sea level rise trends. When you look at 2050, it's not as ominous. only about a 20% decrease in space available. But actions can be taken to manage the beach properly and make sure that this isn't too much of a problem. So summarizing all of this, the dark blue, I'm changing colors, I'm sorry, but the dark blue is the homogeneous, and those hatched lines are the variable distributions. And you can see the variable increases for all of them because the spacing is different throughout the beach, and people tend to congregate in those higher densities just based on amenities and locations. As you go down the chart, you see how it decreases with different sea level rise scenarios, as with the emergency lanes. On the right, you can see how it changes when you take a look and compare high tide versus low tide. So now, what about parking? How does parking play into all of this? In the survey, we asked how do people access the beach? And 92% of people said they access the beach via vehicle. That's a lot of people coming in a lot of cars. As well, 90% said they attend the beach with 4 people or less. Some cars might be huge cars. They might be the minivan. You might have 6 people in it. Other people are coming by themselves to enjoy the beach. So similar to a study, we looked at 2 different densities in our report, but this is the one we think is most accurate for this beach and aligns with that previous study, and we estimated 3.5 people per vehicle. If you multiply that by the number of parking spaces available in the town's lots, you get about 3,500 people. So if everyone's parking in the town lots, that's the number of people coming on the beach. That's 90% of the people that are likely going to attend based on survey results. That is not near that 7,000 number, so something to take into account. Just a little fact checking here, bringing all the data together. Additionally, we said we would take a look at the facilities and the water usage. We were a little limited here because we only had monthly water data, but we wanted to see if it aligned, if it made sense as to what people were saying, how much they use the facilities. While we were on site and while looking at the survey results and what people commented on, we see that the facilities are often at capacity. There's lines, and people mention that additional cleaning needs are needed. And when you look at the water usage, though, it comes out to about 3.2 gallons of water per each visitor. That equates to about 2 toilet flushes or 1 toilet flush and a 40-minute shower. That's pretty reasonable for a person's use while attending the beach. Jumping into recommendations. So our final report has 39 different recommendations and different examples of places they've been implemented. We split them into the following categories you see on the right, and I'll go over the top recommendations for each category that we have tonight. So first recommendation for data collection and management. I encourage annual monitoring and post-event surveys at the same transects each year so they can be compared year after year. These should also extend into the nearshore region, so you're not just analyzing the dry beach, but also the whole system. You're looking to the north of the beach, you're looking in the nearshore. There's more that happens beyond the dry beach. Additionally, increase the volume of sand placement to widen the beach and, importantly, enhance the protective dune. I know you took actions to do that this past winter. Very important to continue to do that, especially post-storm. Consider visibility assessment for long-term coastal management strategies. Take a look back at that Woods Hole assessment. Look at what additional sand placement can do. Look at what bypassing sand from the narrow river, backpassing sand from certain areas on the beach. How can those be enacted, and is that a solution that the beach can take? So direct human-induced threats and social concerns. I think this is a pretty obvious, but increase staff on weekends and holidays. You know there's going to be more people on the beach, so why not have more staff present? Add additional funding for beach patrol and security presence. A lot of people mention that rules need to be followed up on. People need to be held accountable for their behavior, so make sure that there's people, and that's their job to do it, and they take it very seriously. People were concerned about people entering the beach without paying the fee. So you could have beach badge checkers that walk along the beach and ask to see people's beach pass for the day, their season pass, etc., and they can sell them as they go along the beach. Additionally, like I mentioned earlier, designate a safety lane, especially for those high-use days where the lifeguards will be able to access the beach, run along a corridor in the back, get to the water at every stand, and there's an example down near Daytona Beach. So they have those emergency lanes there. Again, limit encroachment onto the dunes. We saw that dune recession is occurring, and ensure consistent monitoring and enforcement of people staying off the dunes. Make sure the dune fence is in place and you have educational signage of why the dunes are important. Consider placing more trash and recycling receptacles. People do complain about trash, so put more out there. People don't like to walk as far, so put them as close as possible. And additionally, if people are concerned about how many people are at the beach, install a camera. They can go, look, see how busy the beach is, and decide whether or not they want to attend that day. Seems like a good solution, so you can make your own decision there. Again, to look at sustainability and biodiversity along the beach, you can install and update new faucets, toilets, shower fixtures that use auto on and off features. Implement a plan for the monitoring and management of invasive species along the dune, and conduct a strategic planting of dune grass in less vegetated areas. We have these maps in our report that show areas that were less vegetated. I know that has changed since the storms that came through this winter, but those provide good examples of where more plantings can be put. To resolve some of the vehicular issues, I know this first one has already been enacted, so allow for increased revenue and people to attend the beach and park in the non-resident parking lots, park in the resident parking lots even though they are not residents on days with lower emissions. So at a certain time, allow them to use those lots and enjoy the beach. Also, Rhode Island State Beaches, they have a really great online parking availability live update. So you could provide something similar, or if you went the route of having live footage of the beach, maybe also do live footage of the parking lot so people can see, oh, are there any parking spaces left before I leave the house, or are there not? Maybe I want to wait an hour or two to go attend the beach. While we were on site, we noticed that there were backups along Route 1A due to people trying to park, so maybe install more signage a little further down so people can see and plan accordingly. Increase bike and pedestrian access. A lot of people don't bike or walk to the beach. 92% of people drove. So maybe make it a little more biker-friendly or pedestrian-friendly. People noted that individuals were speeding in the parking lots, so you could easily add some speed cushions there. And in the event of rain, we actually witnessed that one day, the mass exodus from the beach. Make sure you have parking directors ready to help people navigate through the parking lots, get out, make the turns, and make that efficient as possible. For accessibility, you could add more of those blue mats. You already have them out there extending from the pavilions, but maybe think about extending them to the north and to the south. This will also help spread out the density of users. You can see really clearly in this figure, there's a lot of people directly out in front of the north pavilion. But if you go a little further to the south, there's more room there on the beach, as well as to the north towards the cabanas. We know that was the lowest density area. Another example is using what is the gator system or a little golf cart, something just to help users get to the beach, navigate across the soft sand if they have accessibility issues. So bringing this all together, we're going to touch on everything once more. So data collection, people really enjoy the beach. Your staff is doing a really wonderful job. It's a wonderful, wonderful town beach that so many people enjoy, and you should take pride in that. The most used facility at the beach are the restrooms, and the top concerns that users noted were overcrowding, parking, beach erosion, and the ecosystem health. It should be noted that many people commented on a lot of other issues, but when ranking them, their least concerns were beach safety, cleanliness, noise, and trash sanitation. In the open-ended responses, people noted difficulty of parking, the need for enforcement, crowding, the cost to attend the beach as the most nuisance problems, but also said how beautiful it is and what a great environment it is too. And I think a lot of these can be solved through management actions that are pretty simple. And those are listed in our report, and we just went over a few. Overall, users generally attend the beach for 2 to 4 hours, primarily between the peak hours of the day of 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. This is confirmed not only in the survey results, but also in the drone data and the parking lots. All of those data sets align quite perfectly. Additionally, beachgoers are not evenly distributed across the beach. You can see that again, that is one of the peak times. I believe that's a 1 p.m. flight. Look at all those people out front of the North Pavilion. Then you get towards that central area of the beach. There's a lot more room there. It was very clearly distributed, shown that the data is not uniform across the beach. People go to specific areas. That is very convenient. You walk straight out, you are at the water, you're close to the bathrooms, people want to sit there. So one way to reduce that, just an idea, is to add more entrance locations. I'm not encouraging cutting through the dune, maybe make a dune walkover to make it more accessible to reach that area, or like we mentioned, add those blue mats extending towards the south a little, just to make it easier for people to get there. So the current conditions. The beach is an economic driver. The revenues are quite high, almost $2 million per year. And a lot of that comes for day trippers. They are 65% of the revenue based on the 2019 to 2023 data. The 2021 season was the most popular, while 2020 had the smallest revenue, primarily due to COVID-19. On weekends, there is approximately 3,000 visitors and approximately 2,000 visitors per day on the weekdays. To no surprise, 60% of those lot closures occur on the weekends, and the west lot is the most frequent to close. Daily pass sales have actually decreased between 2019 and 2023 by 20%, and majority of those are sold at the southern locations where people might be able to walk from the pier. It's closest to the west lot as well. On average, resident pass sales are 10,000 passes per season, and there's been a decrease in those revenues primarily due to the introduction of the adult free pass, which is great. Great for adult free pass people. Sorry, a lag there. The beach almost doubles in size at low tide. That's no surprise to those of you who attend the beach, but that's something to take into account. What is the tide that day? How are people going to congregate? Is the tide coming in or going out? Over the long term, we've seen dune toe retreat, a landward shift in the mean high water position, which equates to a decrease in beach width, and also a lot of sediment accumulation near the narrow river. Overall, erosion is exceeding the sand placement events. And due to sea level rise, there's an anticipated shoreline recession of 30 to 45 feet. We recommend additional dune plantings in those areas that are sparse and removing any invasive species that are within the dune. For the carrying capacity, the social carrying capacity or the tolerance of visitors to a crowd is really, really hard to measure. It's based on human feelings and how people feel. So survey results indicate that the social carrying capacity has been reached for many visitors on high entry days. That is no surprise. Meanwhile, the physical carrying capacity, or the number of people that can fit on the beach, is saying something a bit different. So under current conditions, entries average about 2,000 to 3,000 people per day, and we're seeing that variable distribution across our data. Notably, if you applied the distribution that groups are sitting in across the beach, you could fit almost 7,000 people on the beach at one time, not just admission of 3,000 people per day. That's probably getting closer to what you're seeing on peak weekend holidays, where you know the beach is going to be busy. Additionally, the numbers provided in the physical carrying capacities do not incorporate turnover. I would expect the beach to turn over 2 times per day. So people are there in the morning, people are there in the afternoon, people are there in the middle of the day. Most people don't spend the whole day at the beach. So you can anticipate that to roll over for a factor of 2. In addition, changes to any parking policies should really be taken into consideration because it will really limit your revenue of the beach. It's day trippers, that parking and those admissions are 65% of revenue. So any changes to parking should take high consideration. So recommendations. We do not recommend limiting the beach capacity at this time. Comparison of the physical carrying capacities to the aerial imagery, the admissions data, and the survey results indicate that there's additional space for users to recreate. There are medium and low density areas that can be used on those high density or high user days. However, social impacts might say something different. People feel like they're crowded. So maybe you install cameras so you can see how crowded the beach is. Additionally, facilities, there's often lines. They also need cleaning on these high-use days. So that's something that limits the social capacity as well, in addition to parking. A lot of people had comments about parking and how difficult it can be. So those all limit the physical carrying capacity from being reached. Additionally, we don't recommend limiting beach access without a thorough assessment of the value of tourism on the economy for both the beach, the surrounding town, those who rent their homes, etc. It's a large contributor to your local economy and should not be taken lightly. We recommend a number of additional beach management strategies to encourage maintenance of the beach as both in health and its reputation. It's known as a family fun environment, and it provides great recreation space for so many people to enjoy, to exercise, sunbathe, surf, swim. People really like it. So continuing your current management and even enacting new policies to help with that will really keep the beach running like the smooth ship that it has been. It's running quite well, thanks to Michelle and her team. So throughout the survey, we saw that enforcement of policies is really a big thing. So strongly consider that and how to take that more seriously. Look into real-time parking and use status updates. And you know those high use days, have more staff on call for those days and enact those emergency lanes. In addition, look at more physical monitoring, how the beach reacts following storm events such as those we saw this winter, and possibly look into larger scale sand placement events. So I leave you with this. Like many beach destinations, there's going to be crowding. It's inevitable, especially at the height of tourist season like you're seeing right now, these beautiful, sunny, hot days. There's going to be lots of people at the beach, and that doesn't even take into account weekends and holidays. Data agrees with this. We see consistent data trends of when people attend the beach, how long they attend the beach, why they enjoy the beach. So listen to the data that's within this report. Like I said, the beach is running quite smooth. People are happy with it. They have high satisfaction with the beach and the staff members. So keep doing what you're doing and look at some of the recommendations. See if there's anything you think will help your beach function better. This will only help increase not only the beach health, but also people's enjoyment of the beach. Every single decision that you make for the beach should be taken seriously. It's a huge economic driver in the community and so important, not only to your residents and visitors, but also to the ecosystem, what Narragansett is, what Narragansett Bay is. It's very critical to this region. So with that, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a really great report. I did read through the whole report, but I think the summary was wonderful, and you did a great job summarizing all the important points there. And again, I just want to reiterate that no taxpayer dollars were used for this study. It was a very important study I thought that we needed as a council and as the beach management team, and anyone who is really involved with this beach, to ensure that we had that data and information. I think anyone who is a scientist or really wants that data, it's important. And so you really capture that, and we appreciate that. I was mostly interested when I was going to be getting this report and what sea level rise was going to do and all those, and you really were able to speak to that. So I'm going to go to any of the council members right now if they have any questions. I'll start off with Councilor Kopek, who actually helped plant some of that dune grass, so we thank her for that.
I did. Wendy, I just want to thank you for a great presentation, and I thought it was a very comprehensive study. It's one of the best I've seen. So I just wanted to say that. I was really impressed with your recommendations. I think there are several that we can take a strong look at, and some of them are pretty easy to put in place. So I think that's really great. And I think we have to be very careful about what's happening in terms of sea level rise. I'm very interested in the dunes. I want to make sure that we get rid of the invasive species and maintain and maybe increase the size of the dunes. I think that's really important, so I appreciate that you brought that up as an important point. That's really all I have to say. Really great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ferrandi.
Thank you. I concur also as an excellent study, and you know, I'm thinking of all the different things that came up, the explanations about the berm, the dune area, the seagrass, and maybe we can use this as, you know, some sort of like a future go-to or Bible. You know, finally we have this study, we can look at it. It's nice to see all the integration of all the beach statistics from Shell, and maybe we can kind of, you know, summarize a little bit of this into some of the beach meetings once a year. You can kind of coordinate some of this with it. A lot of people want to know the facts, and this definitely does bring some facts out. It's disappointing to hear, you know, that we're losing time on the beach, you know, the sand and whatnot. So I'm sure we could take some measures with that. I know we've been adding the sand where it really goes. I don't know if it all ends up down the other end. Maybe we could future possibly dredge some of the sand where it's going and put it back, you know. But I do appreciate the effort, and hopefully the town can really have something for the future. Thank you.
Councilor Lawler.
Thank you, Wendy. Great report. A couple of questions for you. You mentioned the amount of people at various times. Did you do a drone photo of how many are on the beach before the beach opens? How many people are actually on the beach?
No, we did not have any photographs from then. Our flight times were 9 a.m. was
Gotcha.
the first one. So there might be one that was earlier, but we didn't analyze that.
Thank you. A lot of changes, I agree with Deb, a lot of things that we can easily implement. But while we have you here, for the health of the beach is most important. Obviously, we want to keep this jewel. People move to the town because of the town beach, and it is our jewel of our town. But what would you say are your top 5 suggestions for us for the health of the beach?
For the health?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think starting with the dunes is really important, and that's an easy one to do. Adding more plantings, getting rid of those invasives, and slowly increasing the volume of sediment in those dunes, and also trying to grow them north to south on the beach. They're really localized in certain locations, so how can you grow them beyond where they are now? 5's a lot.
You did a bunch in that one.
Okay, that counts as many. So that's probably my number 1 suggestion. I know that sand placement in Rhode Island is quite tricky. So start talking to your local agencies about maybe how you can incorporate that beyond the dunes in the future. Is there something that can be done where you can place much larger volumes of sand on the beach? And also look at the whole system. I know studies have been done on the Narrow River, but primarily the movement of sediment is going to the north, most likely, based on my gut instinct, not the data that I've seen. Some of the data in the report actually suggests that. But that sand is moving along the beach. So can some of that sand be backpassed to the start of the beach again, and do some regional sediment management where you move sand strategically. You can make plans that are based on this and really do extensive studies that look into where you predict the sand will go. So there's a lot of work that goes into it quite often. Getting them permitted can be a hurdle, but it's possible, and a lot of communities do manage sediment quite actively, especially around inlets, river outflows, just like that. So that's something I would look into.
I like your idea about the emergency lanes for exit, because that's important. Did you take any consideration into the way our fencing is on the beach? Would you recommend a gate for, I mean, if people need to get off the beach quickly? Is there any recommendations you can give us for that?
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't hurt to have a gate on the beach. As at almost each one of those lifeguard entry spots, where is the closest exit for a vehicle? If you did have the emergency lanes, hopefully, though, they'd be able to traverse pretty quickly to the nearest exit. So you might not need one at every stand, but wherever it's easiest, it would be recommended.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilor Cecilia Barron?
I too want to say thank you, great report. Some of the residents were concerned about the beach capacity study because they were afraid that it was going to limit the foot traffic on the beach. And it sounds like from your report that's really not the case, and you can't anticipate that in the future. So it's not so much the number of people, it's the health of the beach itself. Is that correct? Because I just want it for all those people that were so worried about a capacity, they thought that we were going to try to count and limit access to the beach. And I just wanted to hear from you as the experts in doing this study, that doesn't seem to be the case at all, correct?
Yes, that is not our recommendation to limit people. We recommend adding more strategies so people can see how busy the beach is. So if the social capacity has been met for them, they can make the decision if they want to attend the beach that day.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you. I do like, so we are really blessed to have this beach in our town, and it is a precious resource. And I like the fact that it was referred to as iconic, because that's kind of the word I would say too. Like my nieces and nephews use that word a lot, iconic. So again, it's not to be exclusionary, because I remember when we approved this study, it was, there was a lot of comments out there that we were trying to get this study so that we could just exclude people or have less people, but it was more than that. And I knew it was more than that. And this was like the information that I think we really needed to hear, we really need to understand. And again, it's to help manage and the beach and understand the future of the beach. So again, I really appreciate it. And I do like the fact that you did talk about safety, because we always want the beach to be safe. And I think that some of those recommendations are really great. I am going to ask Ms. Kershaw, do you have any final thoughts? Or are you good? Or okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Were you supposed to speak as well? Or did you have any final thoughts? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not excluding anyone. Okay. Mr. Tierney, any you want to comment on this?
No, just to echo what everyone else has already said, it was a very comprehensive study, and as you know, we've already started implementing some of the items that you've listed, and we'll continue to do so as we manage the beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Does anyone from the Rec Advisory Board, I know the chair, Mr. Lynch, did you want to speak on this, or are you good? I think all the information was covered, but I just want to give anyone else the opportunity to comment and just to say how great it was. We want to give you kudos there. So thank you.
I'll never pass up a
I know you will.
live
I
mic,
know. So I figured I'd let
Thank
that.
you, Wendy. Thank you, Chris. It was a terrific report. I think, I would actually just alert you that we do a great job managing the beach on a year-to-year basis, but as you heard tonight, things aren't standing still. It's a dynamic environment, and you'll be hearing, I think, for initiatives about sustainability, that we get a much more accurate portrait of the dunes, the vegetation that's required there, the amount of sand that does have to go on the beach, whether or not there is any viability or practicality of dredging sand from Now River. So those are going to be material expenses to investigate, but I think I heard very clearly from a number of people here that this is the economic engine of the town. And we can't sit still while we see it moving. There's less beach there now than there was 12 years ago. And there's going to be substantially less beach in 25 years if we don't take some steps. So I would just like to forecast to this council and future councils that we will have to be coming with a set of recommendations that aren't about our year-to-year operations only, but about the long-term planning for resiliency on the beach. But thank you for approving the study, and I think it's a very valuable volume of data we have now to operate with.
Thank you. Sure.
What Mr. Lynch just said, I'm the council rep at the Recreation Advisory Board, and we went over this, reviewed it at our last meeting last Monday, and it was a general assessment of everyone on the board that we want to take this and use it as part of build up a master plan. We have master plans for Canachet, we have a master plan for Sunset Farms that I know we're updating, but we very much as a recreation board, we want to use this along with the Woods Hole study and come up with a master plan so that we can make sure that we're taking care of the reason that people live here in town for the next 25, 35, 50 years, how long the beach is going to be there. But we take this very seriously. And to Eva's point, it is a great study. There's a lot of information in here, and we're going to take it very seriously. Oh, Dennis has one more thing.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't call out the incredibly valuable contribution that Gail Skullcroft made to helping this move along, help shape it, help and assist in finding the consultancy. So we're very, very fortunate to have a townsperson with her credentials and experience that gave us all the energy and passion to bring this to fruition. So I want to acknowledge that too. So thank you, Gail.
Well, thank you, everyone. We did a lot of time for this because I thought it was going to go a lot longer. So if anyone has any final thoughts, I will take any comments from the public, but please keep it limited to a couple minutes and just keep it limited to the facts. Thank you. I'll just go with Dr. Alba.
Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett. First of all, I do want to thank you for doing a comprehensive study. I did a previous study for the University of Rhode Island, actually, in 1981, many years ago, with Dr. Tyrell, Dr. Spalding. I don't know if you guys ever remember them. Well respected. So I have some background in doing the study on all the state beaches. And at the time, Mr. Ralph Koppel was the Parks and Recreation Director. He gave me the green light. And at the time, we also had the RIDM director who was on board. So I know a little bit about beach carrying capacity and doing surveys on the beach and examining it. And, I did bring forth to the town, a lot of the things which you stated. So you verified a lot of things which I saw on my daily walks on the beach by live stream videos. I don't know if you saw any of them, but you substantiated it. So I'm thankful for that. I do know that the Army Corps could have done it for maybe possibly 50%, but you guys did a great job, so thank you. On that note, I hope that we do make the town beach more user-friendly. I hope we don't put up more time-limited signage. I hope we open up the parking lots possibly at 1 o'clock if possible, because sometimes when I do my walks there, I see that the lots are empty and they're restricted only to those people who can have the seasonal parking passes, and the west lot is completely filled. So it'd be nice if we can make it more user-friendly. So I hope maybe we can look into that. And like I said, the original parking study we stated, one of the statements was in the parking study by Mike DeLuca was to the statement that we might want to consider putting time-limited signage on Ocean Road because people stated there's a crowd issue on the beach. But that's not the case.
Dr. Alba, please, I am allowing public comment so that you could please,
So I'm just trying to say that we as a town have to make it so, as they said, it's a vehicle.
Please stick to the study, right?
Right. It's
Thank
a
you.
vehicle to help our town, to tourism, bring monies in. So we have to make it more welcoming. Thank you, Council
Agree,
President.
thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's a good comment. I agree with that.
Could you clarify about the south lot, please?
Yes, ma'am. I just was going to ask to do that. So, Dr. Alba, I don't know if you recall, but the town council had approved a recommendation with the beach policies this summer. And when the west lot fills during the week, Monday through Friday, we do open the south lot at 1 o'clock. Yes, sir, it has. We certainly don't have to argue. Correct, sir. And if you'd like to call me tomorrow, I'll show you the data, and we'll go over the information correctly. So thank you.
Okay, last few people. Mr. Schofield.
Good evening. I just want to echo Dennis Lynch's comments. This is a remarkable piece of work, so congratulations to Taylor Engineering. You know, I'm an engineer myself, and so have some appreciation for the amount of effort it takes to produce such a multidisciplinary report of this quality. You know, the overall strategy for the areas and topics covered was well thought out and well designed. The raw data is well presented and very well referenced in the text, which makes the text easy to read. So I just want to thank all of you on the council and the Parks and Recreation Group and the Rec Advisory Board, all of you, for having the vision and the fortitude to not listen to the naysayers and to have funded this study. This is a great piece of work. Dennis Lynch is right. You should use it as a Bible for going forward. And, you know, thinking back to some of the meetings you've had here last winter and the discussions over how big the beach fund has to be, the enterprise fund, clearly more is going to be demanded of the enterprise fund to do many of the things Taylor Engineering has just recommended. And I think a far-sighted move for the town will be to make sure that that enterprise fund continues to grow proportionate with the needs for more dune building and more sand replenishment and more point-to-point, you know, measurements using these points, these sectors, these transients that have been decided as an annual, you know, measurement point. You've got basically a calibrated beach thanks to Taylor Engineering. So again, congratulations to all of you. Don't listen to the negativity that's been going around in this town. It's nonsensical and it's incorrect, and you deserve a great deal of credit for what you produced here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, yes. I'm sorry, you can state your name and address. I'm sorry, I didn't have anyone else do that. I forgot to ask, just so,
okay.
yeah.
Dr. Bonnie Siegel, Walnut Street, Narragansett. Mr. Schofield took some of my words out of my mouth. I want to thank you all on the town council for being one of the first town councils to be proactive instead of reactive. I've loved this beach since 1968, and the thought that it's a little bit endangered and that you're taking a long-term plan to make sure that all our children and grandchildren can enjoy this beach for time to come is wonderful, and thank you. I did have a question. I know we're saying that there is more room on the beach. However, as you acknowledged, people sit in one place. We also, using your car method for people on the beach is a great idea, but we all know we have a drop-off area. People get dropped off. They don't come with cars necessarily. People enter walking through different entrances with passes, and we know that people come in the morning before the beach is open, and we know people jump the wall. So while we're saying it isn't really overcrowded, when I read all the open-ended questions, there is a perception of it being crowded. So if you say perception is reality, where is the disconnect? Is it that everyone's sitting in one place? Is it, I mean, we can put mats up. I don't know if that's going to move people away from entrances. There is absolute capacity, and then there's capacity where people feel comfortable. There were a lot of complaints about people saving space. I mean, how do we deal with that? Thanks.
So that's addressed by stating that the social capacity has been met for some people. And we suggested a number of recommendations, including adding those blue mats so people can spread out across the beach, implementing a gator service where people can that have disabilities can get valeted to a certain spot. Also increased access locations that will help spread people out, having cameras so you can be aware of, is your social capacity met for that day? Are there too many people there for your liking? So that's how you can really manage that issue. And we do see that social capacity, or how people are feeling, what they responded in those open-ended questions, that's what that addresses. But putting an exact number to that is very challenging because it's different for everyone. So there's no right answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, it is a tough one. Ms. Skowka. Dr. Skowka.
So, Gail Scowcroft, 19 Prospect Ave, Narragansett. I also want to echo that thank you. For 10 years, I advocated for such a study. The fact that this council is the council that approved it shows your courage and your foresightedness, and we are so blessed to have these experts who were able to produce an incredible body of work for $147,000. I thank them tonight for producing a $400,000 to $450,000 study for $147,000, and what they didn't tell you is that this was a passion project for them. We got a lot for our money. And again, thank you very much. It's something that I've known for a long time that we needed. So thanks.
Thank you. Sam, come back, sorry.
Hi, Kathy Byrne, Montauk Road. I too want to thank you all for this incredible opportunity to understand our beach. One area that I would like us to take into consideration is the square footage that is used by a beachgoer, because I think that's changed. We now have these tents and large flying things, and I think that there is perception that the beach is crowded because each person is taking up a lot more room. So it's something we do have to consider. When you stand up at the cabanas and you look down at the beach, it's a sea of tents. There may only be 2 people sitting under that tent, but they're taking up what used to be maybe 2 or 3 umbrellas. So I think it's something that we have to consider, and it's a perception. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So
Eva, before we end, I think we just need also to recognize the former rec chair, Tom Warren. He was in the focus group along with Gail and Michelle that worked with Taylor Engineering behind the scenes for a year. So thank you, Tom, for your leadership.
thank you. Yeah, sure.
I just want to, Tom Warren, 26 Jake's Way, Narragansett. I just want to let you know that we did start this. This was something that we wanted to do when I was chairman of the rec board. We got a unanimous vote from the rec board to do this. It was something that we felt that needed to be done. We embarked on this without knowing what the answers to any of these questions were going to be. And it was very important to have Wendy, experts, scientists tell us, give us a roadmap where we were going forward. So I'm proud to be associated with this, and I want to congratulate you and your staff, and I want to congratulate the council for having the courage to put this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you again. I think, again, it was a really great, thorough study, and it provided us with answers that we need, or information and data that we need. So at this time, unless there's any more questions or from the council, I'll adjourn this work session and just thank everyone for coming and being interested in our beautiful beach. And have a great night.